What is going on, guys? Welcome back, commentary for you. I know, but now they can't say I didn't do it, right? All the positives about the beta. I love this image that they put out with Madden 21. Doesn't this guy look like he's about to sell you an erectile dysfunction medication? I mean, that's how I personally perceive it. It looks like it's straight from a Roman commercial. But first off, I want to say the beta is going to be done tonight, obviously, as you know. And it's been my experience that very often this is the same game, only tuned to player preferences as far as what you guys will play in a few months. I know that's a controversial statement, I guess, to make, but as somebody who's played the beta now 3, if not 4 years in a row, every year it's been out, I can tell you from the notes that I take on launch day, there really is no discernible difference other than it's a much more complete game. In years past, though, we have had a little bit more in the beta included than we did this year. So, first thing I want to talk about is they did fix some of the graphical issues. So, some of the things you would experience with players going through each other or cutscenes that come off weird, those seem to be rectified to a high percentage based on the time I spent with the game. You can almost lead with a fast wide receiver, a Tyreek Hill-esque receiver. You can almost pass lead. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. I will say online, players can adjust zones, and I did see some temporary success. I think EA really needs to focus on letting those personnel assignments go back into that, and I think they also need to let that be a default because it resetting constantly causes problems when you're trying to go from switching a defense scheme to setting those zones as well. I will also say, and this could just be, in full disclosure, the people I played online, but it did seem like using the linebacker was a little bit diminished. I think the game speed played a big part in that, and perhaps even there is a little bit of a speed restriction on defense that made it seem like they weren't as able to run all over the field. Now, the big thing that I have a problem with, hit or miss, no pun intended, is quarterbacks while throwing in the grasp. I have seen some of the most outrageous, unacceptable, why is this in the game moments, including one which will be sent to EA, where Pat Mahomes was in the grasp, threw the ball at a 30-degree angle from which he was hit. The ball literally came out of his hand, made a direct right turn, and then went out to a receiver. Now, it went to a receiver that didn't attempt to catch it because it wasn't the intended receiver, but neither here nor there. That's a whole different issue Madden has to address. I am very concerned, given the current state of the game, that we are going to see absolutely absurd throws this year while a player's turned around, while players going to the ground, where the ball trajectory has no impact. Hopefully it's something they can refine, but as of right now, I would say it is one of, if not my top concerns, given the fact that this was supposed to be a big game changer. Now, going back to pass leading, this is kind of a defensive issue. Overthrows do occur, and they happen at a greater rate than they did in the past. I will say that I have seen some really nice plays where a defender kind of center fields it and goes back and catches an interception in stride. When you see it, you realize you haven't seen this in Madden a lot, and it is kind of an impactful moment. Every time I think EA comes out with a new Madden, you have one of those moments, right? Where you see something that you really haven't seen before, and you're excited about it because it seems new, but then like we talked about, it kind of gets lost in the wash of everything being the same. So the overthrow interceptions are a big thing, but a lot of times they're getting intercepted. And that goes back to situations where the wide receiver just does not play any type of position. So I think they need to work on, honestly, adding more animations or putting the receiver in a position where his movement can affect the ball. Because right now it seems like although these moments are great when they happen, you get the distinct impression that they're scripted once they start, and then your overthrow just becomes an interception. Now, I will say, limited experience with this, The halfback screens still fail. Don't get me wrong. They still break down for very odd reasons. Like your linemen don't run out right, your linemen run into each other, your linemen turn back. So some of that I understand people will say is a timing issue with the screens, but at the same time, the concept of the play remains the same regardless of when you throw the ball. And sometimes my timing, I believe, is messed up as I'm trying to steer away from defenders because they just get that initial open rush at the quarterback. I would say if I had to put a number on the percentage, it's maybe 60% of the time, and I do feel like that's a little lower than where Madden currently is now. I will also say, in terms of plays like, I would say, a screen, I would say whether it's wide receiver or tight end, when you get players out in movement, when you have the availability for yards after the catch, this game seems to allow it a little bit more, fighting through that initial tackle. I will also say the change of direction in that same mindset does have a inconsistent speed penalty, but when it is there, it is a good thing. So it gives the perception of momentum, agility. These things matter. When you catch the ball, yes, you're slowing down, but you can get right back up to full speed and keep moving. You don't feel as hindered before as you did when catching the ball, like you were just kind of stuck in sand. So those are two things that are good, very good actually, but also two things that are relatively inconsistent, especially the change of direction. If they could get the change of direction hammered out, where it's a constant speed penalty, and it is ratings based, where you've got your fast halfbacks, your fast tight ends that can cut in and out better than, say, your more plotting halfbacks or your possession tight ends, that would be a big thing. Now, I do know one of the other huge factors, one of the elephants in the room, one of the things that's been brought up by NFL players is quarterbacks fumbling. And I will say, from what I saw, quarterback fumbles when scrambling and being hit were greatly, greatly diminished. Now, I say that with a 150-pound truckload full of salt because what I've known is, to go back to the beginning, a lot of the positives that we take away from the beta is they will tune these based on player suggestions. And let's just be forthright with ourselves. The player suggestions generally are the ones that are getting game improvements and game changes, which would be your MUT gamers, your competitive gamers. So, to a lot of the aspect of what's going to be changed, I don't firmly believe it's going to go back any other way than maybe what they would want. The last thing I want to talk about, and maybe the biggest change, is the overall presentation. Now, some of this I don't have a complete understanding of, because it would appear that the background images are not loaded in the game yet. So there will be times where you have a player going to come out or going through an introduction and the screen will just be black behind them, as if there's going to be an image loaded. You are just not exactly sure what that image is going to represent. But I will say, if you were just watching this game, meaning you're not playing it, you just have it on, the way they've redone a lot of the cinematics, the way they've redone a lot of the introductions, and the way a lot of it is shot in terms of the opening kickoff and some of the presentation aspects, it really does appear as if it's a real game. And that is something from an immersion standpoint that I'm kind of lost on, because EA has went back and forth on this so many times that now we're kind of muddied the water and we're somewhere in between. We've had so much, we're in the huddle, we're an NFL player, here's the immersion experience, and now it's slowly transitioned over to you're watching a television presentation. And those are really two distinct things. You're talking about, almost a first-person football player view against a complete third-person television production. And blending those two together has really caused some confusion. So, for example, when you go to have the ball get kicked off, you're the kicker, the camera angle changes, the ball gets shown on the screen, you're not used to that, while yes, it's very common in a television presentation, I'm playing the game, not playing a game on TV. So I think they kind of need to reach out to some groups in the community and try to better understand what direction we as gamers want overall. I don't want to speak for anyone on that. I don't really think I care one way or another, but I would like one distinct tone in presentation. If you're going to give me full, you're in the game, you're a football player, here's that, ideology and concept, or you're going to give me full, you're watching a game on TV and just participating in it, you have to kind of go one way or the other, because this kind of back and forth that we've had over the past few years is just really leading to a confusing visual presence for your game. So there you go. For people that say I never did it, I actually extended it to over 10 minutes. Those were all the positives I took away from the beta. I don't have time to do all the negatives because I don't really need to film a 20-hour video, but there you go. Everything I liked about it, it's been said, it's been done. Hopefully they stick with it. I've been working on the beta video that I have to send over to EA. I've got a direct email address for the individual it's going to, and we're going to hope they can really sit down, look at these things, and make some changes. And I promise you, you have my commitment. If those issues are still in the game, you better believe day one or the first day I get the game in my hands, I'm going to let you know this issue right here was presented to them July 2020, and they did not fix it. Love to know what you guys think about this. Appreciate you checking out, and I will be back. Actually, you know what? I'll be back tonight with some exclusive Maximum Football video, not gameplay, but images from last year to this year. I know a lot of people like to make those comparisons, and they absolutely listened to the community and made a big change to how their game looks. With that said, I will be back in the week with more commentary.